So here's the thing about therapy in Bojack Horseman. It's a topic that I feel had a very unique portrayal in this show, where oftentimes in popular media, therapists are presented as knowledgeable, always helpful, and generally extremely kind and empathetic people. However, in Bojack Horseman, we get a bunch of examples of therapists causing conflict or acting rather unethically toward their patients. The strongest message that I feel this show really nails with regard to therapy is showing these therapists as humans themselves. Dr. Indira, even with her limited amount of appearances, is a fantastic example of this concept. She was Diane's therapist for 7 years, had established a strong relationship with her, an intimate understanding of her flaws, her trauma, her personality, and likewise, Diane had developed a profound trust with Indira that is difficult for her to establish. It's worth mentioning that Diane does often struggle to articulate her feelings toward others, as we see with Mr. Peanut Butter. So her being open with Indira is a really positive signal about the work that they had done thus far. However, when Bojack comes along, Indira betrays that trust by agreeing to see him behind Diane's back, even though Diane expressly stated that it made her uncomfortable for Bojack to see the same therapist as her. It's not as if there aren't hundreds of other therapists he could have gone to see in the LA area. And when Diane inevitably finds out from Bojack and tells Indira that she can't treat both of them, Indira resolves to let her go permanently, causing Diane to either have to seek therapy elsewhere or simply stop altogether, which is an insane risk. I respect Indira's assertion that she has given Diane tools that she can use to live an emotionally healthy life, but to turn away an active patient so suddenly gambles that that patient slips backward on the progress that you've made. You've essentially rejected Diane here, broken that trust that you've spent so long building. She's very lucky that Diane does presumably continue therapy after this, or at least sees a psychiatrist in season 6. However, we actually don't get any context that Diane has seen a therapist after this whole incident with Indira. And I can't blame her either. Personally, after a situation with my therapist that I'd rather not discuss, I never looked for another one because I felt rather deceived and distrustful of them as a result of it. This is a very real situation that can happen between the therapist-patient relationship. How is Diane supposed to open up again after her trust was taken advantage of so heavily here? And seriously, Indira could have just written Bojack a referral to another therapist, rather than overtly turn her patient of 7 years away. It's not like Bojack was really looking for therapy anyway, or saw Indira as a therapist, because, of course, as soon as she focuses her full attention on Bojack, revealing to him that it is in fact therapy that they were doing this entire time, he recoils, causing her to lose both patients. It was a critical error, for sure. Indira was swayed by the severity of Bojack's case and made a rather unprofessional decision to dump Diane as a patient. It was disloyal and even a bit cruel. Perhaps, as she states, her even encouraging Diane to use Indira as an excuse to keep distance from Bojack was the true inciting mistake for this whole scenario. Ultimately, I think it's very human of her to involve herself in this scenario and to get too deep into this fraught relationship to the point where she loses several connections of her own. And I don't consider her to be a terrible person or anything remotely close to that. I don't even think she's necessarily a poor therapist either. From what we see, she does in fact provide Diane solid tools to process her trauma and daily struggles, and the length of time they spent together indicates a definite level of competence. Again, this was really just an error of judgment, and one that I believe stems from her own feelings on the situation rather than what is expected of her as a professional therapist. Obviously, it's a poor choice on her part, but one that I expect to happen every now and then in a field, of course, run by humans. There is human error, and she does recognize the mistakes that she made in this whole situation. At the end of the day, she has learned, and she likely won't make this mistake again in her career going forward, which is a bit of a positive outcome. Another very human example of a therapist in this show is, of course, the character of Dr. Champ. Now, it's worth stating that this man is not a certified doctor or therapist in any way. He is a therapy horse, a subtle but important legal distinction. I honestly wish we got more context for the type of training, if any, that he did receive for this post. He clearly does have experience with addiction and rehabilitation, but actual therapy as a medical field is, of course, a very different thing, much, much larger in scope. But I do think that he serves a similar role as a therapist does, and is capable of providing Bojack with sound, realistic advice to deal with his addiction, even if it often comes from overcomplicated sayings. However, he is a recovering addict himself. He isn't some perfect figure that has no chance of relapsing for the rest of his life, as when Bojack accidentally throws a water bottle full of vodka out the window that somehow ends up in his hand, of course, he drinks the whole thing and then struggles to break out of this cycle of drinking afterward, no matter how much he might wish to, and no matter how much he might already be familiar with the process of doing so. And when Bojack extends a similar helping hand to him by placing him in a rehabilitation facility, as rehab has helped Bojack himself become sober, Dr. Champ instead resents him for it. He believes that he would have been able to keep his alcoholism a secret from everyone around him, his family, those he mentors at Pastiches, to continue his life as usual, even as he sunk deeper and deeper into his addiction. It's a very illogical view, obviously, but one that I believe is very realistic for an addict to hold. That blame that he casts off onto Bojack for ruining him and his life allows him to avoid responsibility for his own actions in this scenario. And he even goes so far as to leak Bojack's private confessions with him to the press to aid in his public cancellation. Probably the most unprofessional thing a counselor or therapist could even do to one of their patients. But it speaks to the effect that the disease holds over him, and how even though he had reached a positive place in his life prior to this relapse, he's still just a person at the end of the day. He can still fall backward, he can still make mistakes, slowly forget what he's learned about sobriety more and more as he sinks deeper and deeper into addiction. It's not as if therapists are immune to mental illness, just because they know the symptoms and techniques to deal with them. That alone, I'm sure, helps a ton to manage symptoms, but it doesn't remove the capacity to fall down every now and then, and we shouldn't expect them to be perfect either. It's not fair to them or to us as their patients. They're just people. Therapists often go to other therapists. It's not uncommon at all, because again, they are humans who have their own issues to work through, and it doesn't make them above anybody else just because they are aware and perhaps more educated on these illnesses. And it's due to this humanity that sadly, not every therapist is great at their job. They're not all these super insightful people, as we would like to believe. Don't get me wrong, on the whole, many therapists do have your best interests in mind and are well trained. But it is a job, like any other. There are going to be a few incompetent people in the field. That's why it's important to do your research before choosing one, and to not feel remorse about deciding to switch therapists if one isn't working for you. You have the choice here, and it's not personal at all. In this show, they do a good job conveying this idea through Dr. Janet, the couples counselor that Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter attend. She is not the best. I really disliked this woman's methods, as she spoke to Diane with a bit of condescension and judgment, and largely put the onus entirely on Diane herself to repair her relationship with Mr. Peanut Butter. It's not as if what she said was overtly wrong, as she was just trying to get Diane to communicate, but the way she went about conveying this to Diane makes it seem as if it's entirely her fault. And at the same time, it seems like she might have let Mr. Peanut Butter a bit off the hook here, even though many problems with their marriage come from his behavior as well. I don't think Dr. Janet was really able to see beyond Mr. Peanut Butter's extremely overdramatic confessions of love to be able to view the problems underneath it, like his inability to listen to Diane's wishes when she does actually state them. In fact, I'd wager it's a strong reason why Diane has such a hard time expressing what she wants in the first place, because she knows that he will kind of just ignore her. Plus, with Janet's insanely aggressive alarm to end each session, it seems like she's really in it for the paycheck, and isn't particularly invested in helping her couples. Listen, I'd like to state that we don't really see that much of this woman, and these could easily just be silly jokes that don't say this much about her general aptitude as a therapist. She did, after all, help Rutabaga and his wife work through their issues and stay together for, at the very least, the rest of the show's run. So take it with a grain of salt. But still, I felt that she was a rather aggressive presence, and one that showed that not every single therapist can actually provide benefit to your relationship, or just yourself. Maybe she just wasn't a good fit for Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter specifically. As I said, you are not going to find an instant connection with every single therapist. Find that person who immediately gets everything that is going on with you, or with you and your spouse. So whether or not it was actually intentional to portray Dr. Janet as maybe not the best therapist, I think she does offer an important message about how difficult it can be to find that special bond that actually works for you to be able to grow. It's why I keep emphasizing in this video that searching for the right therapist, looking around, not being afraid to try more than one is so important. Another thing under this umbrella that I feel this show excels at is correctly portraying that therapy is not a cure-all. It can help you to better understand your patterns, more clearly view your own behavior, and can provide you with valuable techniques to be able to control your thoughts, depending on how you need. But it's not going to do the work for you. Simply showing up at therapy is really the first step. It's going to show you what the work is, where you have to look to be able to reach that place that you're striving for. Diane is in therapy for a long period of time, and still has much work to do after she departs from Indira in season 5. She still hasn't really dealt with separating her identity from her mental illness, and oftentimes assumes that feeling terrible is the way she was meant to feel, is the way she is deserving of feeling. She thinks that Guy will eventually leave her when he discovers that real her underneath. We don't know if she was in therapy at this point, but it's likely that after so much time without it in her life, she was beginning to stop practicing those techniques that Indira taught her, that have helped her over all these years. And it's not her fault, of course, that's not what I'm saying, but instead it shows how if we don't keep up with these techniques and continually work to be better, continually try to steer ourselves toward rational thought, to utilize what others have taught us, then we aren't going to move forward. Again, simply attending therapy for however long a period of time is not going to completely fix you. As I said before, even those who have studied these techniques, have succeeded with them, can still slide back or have days where their mental health is worse than others. It's hard to keep up, to make it a routine for yourself, and once you slip up, it can snowball you into a truly miserable state before you even realize it. It takes time to facilitate that intimate relationship with a therapist, to get them to truly understand you and your patterns. We humans are complex things, let me tell ya, and we need a lot of context to truly truly be able to grasp the essence of another person. Diane worked hard to build a rapport with Dr. Indira, for Indira to really be able to understand her and provide her the advice that she truly needs. It's a process that requires work on both sides. Not to mention that you do have to voluntarily open up to do therapy and tell the whole truth. It's really hard to just face-to-face tell this random person your deepest issues and insecurities. Trust me, I diminished how poorly I was doing all the time in therapy for fear of being judged or being diagnosed with something I didn't want to have. Such a bonkers mindset, but it is very real. But then it's basically just you wasting your money to have casual conversation if you don't share the real truth about yourself. You have to open up to them completely, and for that, you really have to want to speak with someone in the first place, to want to understand yourself better. We can see how necessary this is for Bojack, how easily he slips into sharing when he sees Indira as a friend that he can confide in. However, the second that it becomes therapy, it scares him off. It's natural to be afraid of what the therapist might tell you about yourself. It is so frightening to hear an unbiased opinion on our own behavior, but it could not be more pertinent for our own growth. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you being with me for this time, but if you want to support the channel further, you can go to patreon.com/PosiTVty to get all these videos before they come out on YouTube. Seriously, the Patreon is like 5 videos ahead right now. It's awesome. I'm actually on top of my shit, and you get to see them fully unedited, so you get to hear all of my extra commentary that I decide to cut out for the YouTube version. Plus, you just get to choose whatever you want me to make, and whatever TV shows you'd like me to watch. I am watching through Ruby, I am watching through Tuca and Birdie right now, and I am open to more suggestions. So I thank you all for supporting me there, but even if you are just here on YouTube, I love you, and I hope you're having a great day, regardless, and I wish you the best. Triple whammy.